Hi everyone, it's Carol Maloney Scott, and we are in Smart Chicks Career Club today. We tried to be in there live to do this for you, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. This is definitely an example of the imperfect action that I tell you ladies that you need to take. So Elaine is just super gracious and not, at least I don't think, mad at me that I screwed this up. So we're going to go ahead and record this for you. So you're seeing the recording now, and we'll have Elaine pop in another time live, and we'll definitely get that figured out. And I do apologize for that. So without further ado, Elaine Kiziah is here with us today, and I'm very excited about that. Elaine is with Sea Change Studio. That is her business, and links to that will be in her presentation. Elaine has a PhD in psychology, and she has worked extensively in organizations and, basically in the workplace, psychology of the workplace. So certainly that makes her an excellent subject matter expert for our group. And also certainly she is a huge, huge expert in time management, which is what she's here to talk with us about today. And just a quick reminder, Elaine is the person that, if you've watched my videos, that I talk about frequently as being my inspiration around getting a handle on my own time management and being able to move the needle on my own goals. In January 2019, I attended Elaine's Soulful Time Management Retreat here in Richmond, Virginia, and I had never taken any kind of I'd never gone on any kind of a retreat before where I actually did a workshop or anything that was overnight. So it was a very immersive experience, and it was very life-changing for me. So I'm very excited to have Elaine here to talk with us today. So this is good stuff. Please get a notebook out. Write it all down, and this of course will still be saved in the group, but I want you guys to get the full experience as if you're live with Elaine. So Elaine, I'm going to let you take it away. Thank you.
I will take it away, and thank you so much, Carol, for all that you're saying. It makes my heart happy to to think about the impact that this stuff has had for you, and it's certainly been like just such a pleasure for me to have you along for the journey, that retreat, but you and I have stayed in relationship, and you're a part of a community that I run. So you enrich my life.
Thank you.
It's really great to be with you. So the thing that I, kind of the core piece that I wanted to share with your group today is really one of the nuggets that's actually from that Soulful Time Management Retreat, and is kind of a collection of ideas about how to really make progress on your priorities. And we're going to focus in on one of those things, but I've actually got a collection of 10 strategies that I'll share with you to begin with, and then we're going to go kind of deep on one of those. So let's, host has disabled screen sharing.
Which host did not do, so okay, great.
It worked, everyone, it worked when we tested this before.
Apparently every time you do this, you have to do it again. Okay, well now the host has enabled screen sharing. The host needs a nap and, I don't know, a donut, something. Okay, it should work now. Here we go. Yay!
It's not been the best technology day. That's awesome.
No, that's okay. We're here, and look, there's pretty things on the screen.
And there's pretty things on the screen just for you and your Smart Chicks Career Club.
Yay!
So I what I have to share with you, as I think I just said, is 10 specific strategies that I want to share with you for making progress on your priorities. And as I talk through these, you can take copious notes if you want to, but way easier than that is I've actually put a summary of what I'm going to be sharing about these 10 strategies into a free PDF for you that I've got a special link just for the Smart Chicks Career Club. So seachangestudio.com/smartchicks. If you go there, you can download your own copy of this so that you don't need to be taking notes while we're going. But I'm gonna move pretty quickly through these 10 strategies. We'll have an opportunity for looking in more depth at one of them, and also for you to do a little bit of reflection around it. I'll share some reflection questions for doing that. And probably, as you know from hearing Carol talk a lot about this, I'm a big believer in the power of journaling, just like Carol is. So just inviting you to take a few minutes to do some reflective writing to help you think about how to apply some of the ideas that I'm going to share with you. And then, like Carol was saying, hopefully we'll find a way for me to come back into the group and just have a little bit of chat about any obstacles that you might anticipate encountering as you apply these, and how we can maybe help you get around those. So that's the plan. And with that, I'm just going to move straight into those 10 strategies for making progress on your priorities, for bringing your vision for yourself in your career and your life, bringing that into being. So the first one is stay emotionally connected to your why. And to bring your vision into being and to reach the goals that you've set to help get you there, that vision needs to drive your daily choices. And so you need to stay in touch with your vision, with your goals, and why they really matter to you. But because our emotional self plays a huge role in whether we take action, how we take action, that connection with our goals can't just be an intellectual one. It has to have an emotional component to it. It needs to speak to you emotionally. And journaling is one of the tools that I love for that. So kind of using writing to reconnect with the passion that's behind your aspirations. And a simple way to do that is just to take 5 minutes with your journal to write down your answer to the question, why does this matter to me? Or what do I love about this vision? So that's number one. Number two is set achievable goals. And of course, your goals and your intentions need to be in alignment with the realities of your life. But beyond that, people can get so hung up on this idea of like wordsmithing the goals to make them just perfect. But the reality is that the wording matters much less than how you feel about the goals. And when we set goals for ourselves that provoke a lot of resistance, we set ourselves up for failure. And research actually tells us that progress is motivating. When we see ourselves moving forward, it creates positive emotions in us and a feeling of motivation, and it then catalyzes more progress. So if you set small goals for yourself, small achievable goals, or break the big ones down into smaller goals, and celebrate each win, then you can actually move on to accomplish more in the long run than if you start with these big goals that feel overwhelming to you. And one other thing to keep in mind, if you want your goals to feel achievable, is to choose things that are actually within your own control. And while your big picture goals might rely on other people, so for example, if you're trying to land a new job, that's not entirely up to you. But on a day-to-day basis, you're going to have a lot more success if you focus on the tiny things that are up to you. So for example, a goal of reaching out to one new contact every day, or whatever specific action makes sense to you. But that reaching out action, that's up to you. That's within your control. And you can check that off and say, yes, progress, progress, progress. Number three And I'm actually going to move myself. I warned Carol that I was going to have sunbeams chasing me around my office. And I'm starting to feel like the Spanish Inquisition here. There we go. So number 3.
You look illuminated, Elaine.
Am I still glowing?
You're glowing a little bit, but it's
I turned off my video so I wouldn't have to look at myself.
No, it's fine.
So number 3 is narrow your focus. And here, the idea is that when we invest our energies in too many different directions at once, it takes us a lot longer to reach our goals. And it can also reduce that positive energy, positive emotions, and motivation that I just mentioned happen when you see progress, because as you're spread more thin, you're going to see less and less and slower progress. But what's going on here, it's not just about spreading your time thinner, because there's also something called switching costs that comes into play. And every time you shift your attention from one thing to another, it takes your brain a little bit of time to reorient to that new focus. So as much as you can, use tactics that help you just focus on one thing at a time, and you'll actually make more progress and feel better too. Number 3 is adopt a learning orientation. And often when we give up on our goals or our intentions, it's because we've fallen victim to a kind of all or nothing thinking. We treat one misstep as evidence that our goal or our intention is impossible. Or we get paralyzed by thinking that things have to be perfect the first time. I love, Carol, what you were just saying about imperfect actions. That's totally what we're talking about here.
Yep, just do it.
Just do it. So instead of being defeated by perfectionism, this strategy is all about recognizing that each experience, each attempt is an opportunity for learning. And if we're really intentional about it, we can then course correct and improve and eventually reach our goals. Number 5, create accountability or not. So often when we're working toward a goal, when we're trying to accomplish something, I think for a lot of us, the tendency is to think that we need to draw on willpower, that it's about kind of accomplishing things through sheer force of will. But there are actually some much easier ways to get yourself to do things. And for the majority of us, having external accountability actually makes us much more likely to follow through. But for some of us, that same external accountability can actually create resistance and pushback. And so Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies framework is one that I love here. And that's essentially what she talks about. She's identified 4 different types of people who, 4 different types based on how you respond to expectations, both other people's expectations of you and your own expectations, aspirations for yourself. And she's identified and outlined different strategies that work best for those different types of people. But for 3 out of the 4 tendencies, having some external accountability in place in one way or another is probably going to be helpful to you. So places like the Smart Chicks Career Club is one great place to get that kind of accountability when it, I would imagine, right, Carol?
Yep. I definitely keep everybody on target as best I can. Yes. And I definitely, I just want to interject. The willpower thing makes me laugh because I know that is something you've said to me many times in different workshops we've done, is because I'm always like, I'm just going to do it. I don't need any, I try to go on 100% sheer willpower, and I burn out so easily doing that. And I've learned from Elaine that doesn't, and for most people, it really doesn't work. It does work for me a little bit because I'm a little bit of a maniac about it, but then I burn out, and then, I'm left with ashes instead of getting anything done. So I really do like this strategy because I think, it really helps a lot.
Yeah. And even if that thing that you need, that intention that you want to follow through on is one around self-care and not burning yourself out.
I don't know who she could possibly be talking. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So the last thing I'll say about that one is that Gretchen Rubin actually has a free quiz on her website that you can take, and we can probably put a link under this recording if you want to go check it out. But it's just quiz.gretchenrubin.com, and it's a free quiz, and it'll help you identify your what your tendency is and suggest a few things for you to keep in mind for yourself. Strategy number 6 is motivate yourself with pleasure, fun, and joy. In other words, positive emotion. And this is another alternative to that grind it out using willpower approach. And whether it's shifting your perspective to a more positive and engaging one, or savoring wins and present moment pleasures, or speaking to yourself with love and kindness, or offering yourself rewards, or one of my favorites, a kind of Mary Poppins style spoonful of sugar. Whatever approach you choose, this kind of strategy is not only a way more pleasant way of motivating ourselves, it's also effective. And there are countless studies from the field of positive psychology that have shown the practical value of positive emotion, and that it's a far more sustainable form of motivation than fear and stress over the long term. Number 7.
I'm just laughing because I'm the queen of stress. I'm a work in progress.
We all are, dear heart. So number 7 is design your environment. And that could mean your social environment, your physical environment, your technological environment, which is kind of a hybrid of those other two in a way. But this is, again, an alternative to the willpower strategy, and in some ways may be the most powerful, because even though we're often not aware of it, our environment actually has a huge impact on our behavior, whether that's the people that you spend time around or the physical environments you live, work, play, learn in, or those technological tools that have become our constant companions. But the key idea here is that we can be at the mercy of our environments, or we can make conscious adjustments to them so that they'll actually support our intentions. And being here in the Smart Chicks Career Club is one wise choice that that you all have made about immersing yourself in a social environment that's going to make you more likely to achieve your goals. So yay for you. Number 8 is build supportive routines. And here the idea is that every time we introduce an element of choice into our day, we create an opportunity to get off track. And we also create opportunities for overwhelm and for paralysis, because research has shown that the more choices we have, the less likely we are to take action. And these days, we're especially prone to that because many of our familiar routines, many of which are unconscious routines, but those have been disrupted. And so I feel like it's more important than ever right now to consciously create routines that align with and support our intentions so we can remove some of those choice points and reduce the overwhelm and increase our effectiveness. Number 9, and this is the one we're going to spend a little more time with in just a couple minutes, so I'll come back to this. But the core idea here is that if your larger goals and intentions don't translate into what you're doing on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, they're not going to happen, period. And with all the things that most of us have coming at us every day, it's so easy to end up giving our time away to things that aren't our true priorities. So blocking out time for what really matters is crucial. And like I said, we'll talk more about some techniques for that in just a few minutes. But the last one on our list here is using a reliable task management system. And this is not just about your tools that you're using, but it's also about how you use those tools, with the goal being to be able to see in one place all of the commitments that you've made to yourself and to others. Because when you have that kind of vantage point and clarity, then you can make wise choices about how you want to invest your precious time, energy, and attention. So choose tools that are fit for you and for how you operate, and the fewer the simpler, because complexity creates confusion and overwhelm. But then you also need to make sure that you have a clear process for how you keep those tools current. So like your calendar and your task list. And I urge you to consider scheduling a weekly, I call them mini retreats, with yourself, just to kind of review everything and gain the kind of clarity and perspective that comes from updating and reviewing your system. So that's the list as a whole. And one of the things I was hoping to hear from people, Carol, was just generally about what ideas there really kind of speak to them the most. And maybe I can ask you as a pop quiz. Can you tell me about, for you, as you reflect on the time since you first came to the Soulful Time Management Retreat, which of these ideas that I've just been talking about, and it might be one of the strategies, or it might be, a smaller kind of related idea or technique, but like, what's been most helpful to you?
So as you're going through these, of course, I've done this several times since I first did it. And so I'm so glad we're doing this, because this is such a gift to me too, to review this. So I'm actually going through and I'm marking the ones that I know are my areas of improvement for myself. one of the things that I definitely struggled with a lot, and I still do, is the whole motivate yourself with fun and joy and nice things, because I have not, that's not the way I was really brought up. I was brought up very much in we work, we work, we work, we work ourselves to death, well, you know, through the sheer willpower piece of it. And it's funny because Elaine will refer to herself or tell people who follow her to refer to ourselves as, you know, sweetheart, or, you know, calling ourselves, you know, terms of endearment. I would never do that. And it's still weird to me. Like, I can't really do that. Like, I can't think in my head, I can't call myself a term of endearment in my head. So that's something that I'm definitely struggling with, and I think would really help me to be a little more gentle with myself. Although I've gotten a little bit better with that because I didn't completely freak out that we had technical difficulties. So I give myself a little pat for that. And then the one thing, and I've talked about this, Elaine, in some of my videos, I was just saying to Elaine before we got going that if she watches my videos, she'll see that I talk about her in her workshop. The time blocking thing, you know, I tell them, Elaine, that, you know, I loved the retreat. And the first day of the retreat, like, I was like spellbound and I was like so into it. And then the second day, maybe midway through the day, you introduce this concept on your little chart board with your pretty markers of blocking time. And as soon as she said that, I said, I'm not doing that. Like, my resistance wall immediately went up. And I think the very interesting thing about that is the other one, which is that the choice creates, too many choices, you know, create confusion and stress, and you know, you tend to then not do what you want. So what I'm really teaching people now in this space is, based on Elaine's teaching, is that by scheduling your time, it's not that you're not being controlled, you are actually in control by doing that, because you're not losing out to this big open space of I could do anything I want, and then you don't focus on the things that you want to focus on because you haven't given yourself the gift of blocking out that time. So I try to look at it more as a gift, like I'm doing something for myself, as opposed to something is being imposed upon me. It's a little bit of the rebel in me, so it's one of the things that always but I've really gotten over that, honestly. I've really gotten over that rebellious piece with that, because I that is what really has worked so well for me, you know, is blocking the time. So I'm interested to see what you have for the ladies to talk about that, you know, and getting a little deeper into that piece.
Yeah, well, and that's a perfect transition. So let's go deeper. But I do have that reflection question first, and I think in order to use that time blocking approach, that strategy number 9, schedule your priorities, you really need to get clear first on what are those priorities. So that's what somehow there we go. So that's what I want to invite people to reflect on before we move into the nitty-gritty of the strategies. And obviously we're not doing this live, so we won't you know, like, take the time right here in the video for this, but I'll just, you know, kind of lay out the questions, the reflection questions for folks, and then invite whoever's watching to just pause the video for 5 to 10 minutes and do a little bit of written reflection about this before you move on. So first off, you know, just pause and think for a moment about your vision for yourself. And you know, in the context of what we're talking about here, your vision for your career, or for your job search, or both. And then here's the question I want to invite you to really dig in with, and that is, what specific activities would have the biggest impact in terms of moving you forward with achieving that vision that you have for yourself. So thinking about kind of day in, day out, what are the things that are going to be really kind of high impact ways of investing your time. And you might also want to spend a little bit of time on another question, which is going to make no sense to you just yet, but bear with me for a moment. And that other question is making a list of things that you will choose to bomb. And so here, before you dig in with these questions, here's a little bit of context that I wanted to offer, and this will make that second question make a little more sense. So here's what I want you to keep in mind as you're reflecting on those priorities and those high impact things. One is to distinguish between what feels urgent and what's truly important. And you might be familiar with, there's a diagram you'll see sometimes called the Eisenhower matrix, or some people think of it as the Stephen Covey 4 quadrants grid. But it's essentially looking at, for each task or activity, you can think of it on a spectrum of how urgent is it and how important is it. And in fact, things can be urgent, but actually not important. Like, I get a whole lot of junk email with its hair on fire going, today's the last day, hurry up and take advantage of this coupon. But do I really need to rush off to Michael's and today and buy something? No. So there's a lot of urgency to that, but no importance. So it's just a helpful distinction as we're making to just, kind of the things that you feel kind of a pressure to take action on, just to pause and ask yourself, is this actually important? Or am I just kind of falling victim to a sense of urgency that, if I stop and pause, really has nothing to do with what my highest priorities are, with what matters most to me. The second idea that I want you to keep in mind as you're reflecting is and you may have heard this one too, the Pareto principle, or also known as the 80-20 rule. And this is the idea that the majority of our results, the majority of the value that we create, is actually due to a small percentage of our effort. So the rule being about 20% of the things that you do will actually produce about 80% of the value. So as you're making your list, thinking about what's that 20%? What are the things that could go on my list that are likely to have that big impact? And then the last thing that I want you to keep in mind here has to do with what you say no to. And this idea that the no's can actually be more important than the yeses. And one person who's written about this, and I love the way he puts this, is John Acuff in his book Finish. He talks about you have to choose what to bomb. So in other words, if you're going to make genuine good progress on something that really matters to you, if you're going to see real results over here, that you have to choose other things that you're going to let go of and not give your energy and attention and time to. So you have to choose to bomb things, to suck at things, so that you can do good work over here. You'll actually find a lot of people talking about this. There's a great Steve Jobs quote about this. I saw an interview with him where he talked about feeling just as proud about the thousands of things that he said no to as the big innovations that he said yes to. And I actually found a quote from him online. So he said, people think focus means saying yes to the things you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that are out there. So those are the things I want to invite you to keep in mind as you're writing. But again, these are the questions for you. So as you think about your vision for your career, for your job search, what specific activities would have the biggest impact for you if you were to do those things in terms of moving you forward? And if you would like to, also spend some time thinking about what are some things that you're going to have to suck at for a while in order to make good progress on your job search or in your career. And so this would be a good time to pause the video and spend some time with those questions. But Carol and I aren't going to sit around here and watch the clock for 10 minutes. So we're going to move on.
Isn't it great how Elaine is so easily able to pivot at the last second when the technology screws up and just smile through it? She's like, whatever. I said, just tell them to pause. Okay, that's fine.
You know what? Like, patience and going with the flow is one of my greatest strengths, and it is also one of my greatest weaknesses.
It's traditionally been 100% my greatest weakness. And I'm getting a little better, though, because I don't know, maybe it's as I get older, maybe it's as I do more things that are out of my comfort zone, and maybe it's just because of the world that we live in right now. If I let myself get upset over every little thing, I'm just not going to get out of bed. So I have to rein it in. So I've reined it in a little. But yeah. Here we go with my rebellious time blocking and time boxing.
Yeah. So there are, the core of this idea is really that strategy number 9, schedule your priorities. And so there are a few different ways that you can approach this. And one of them is this idea of blocking out time for big rocks. And if that's not a familiar phrase, it's probably because you haven't spent much time with Stephen Covey, but he talked a lot about big rocks. And there's this cool old video on YouTube of him from, like, I don't know, in the 1980s or early 90s, where you'll actually find him doing a demonstration of this visual metaphor of big rocks. So the idea is like, he's got these jars and he's got big rocks and medium-sized rocks and a whole bunch of little pebbles. And in this demonstration, if you put all these little pebbles in first and then try to fit the big rocks in, they're just not going to fit. But if you do it the other way around, you can actually fit it all in. So those big rocks are sort of symbolic of those important but not urgent, high value activities that if we don't carve out time for them, it's just going to slip away from us. So, the strategy might be like, if you need to revamp your resume, it might be, okay, I'm going to block out this time on this day to dig in with that task that I know is a really important task, and get that big rock taken care of. So that's one way that you can apply this strategy. Another one is using sprints. And probably the most familiar or classic example of this is the Pomodoro technique. which was, I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but created by some guy in Italy, using his little kitchen timer, which was in the shape of a tomato that you turn to set the timer. And pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato. And so this was his little tomato timer technique. And what the Pomodoro technique looks like, as it was originally formulated, is just saying, okay, I am going to set a timer for 25 minutes, and I am going to choose one task that I'm going to focus on for that 25 minutes. And I don't have to think about anything else right now. Just work on that until the timer goes off. And then when the timer goes off, you take a short break. So traditionally 5-minute break. And then you come back and you sit down and you say, okay, now I'm going to do my next Pomodoro. All right. And it might be that you're continuing to work on the same thing that you were working on previously, if that wasn't something you could finish in a 25-minute block. Or whether you finished it or not, you can decide, all right, there's something else that needs my attention right now, so I'm going to turn and focus my attention on this thing instead, and set my timer for 25 minutes and go. So these Pomodoros, or these sprints, so any kind of focused period of time where you're just doing the one thing for a set period of time, is what you can call a sprint. There are a lot of advantages of that. One of which, it just gives you permission to focus, and it also gives you permission to stop. And so there's this resistance that doesn't kick in as much when all I have to do is just make it to the timer, and it can reduce feelings of overwhelm. So anyway, very cool technique that I encourage you to experiment with if you haven't tried it before. But you can also do longer and larger sprints too. And there are a couple of guys who used to work at Google who wrote a book about time management called Make Time. And they actually talk about how they used the sprints approach at Google and in other tech companies, where they would do a week-long sprint and carve out 1 week that was just to do this kind of intense focus on a particular task and knock it out and get it done. So, I would not recommend, staying focused for a week straight. You do need to take breaks, but it's reaps the benefits of that, not having switching costs when you have a longer sprint period like that. So that's another way that you can apply this technique. And another one is the time mapping that Carol was making reference to. And this is, in a sense, really kind of creating for yourself an ideal picture of your week. I like to think of it as like the high school course schedule approach, where you have this block of time that shows, okay, first period I'm going to be in history, second period so it can look like that, or it can be a looser approach, but that's the essence of it, is kind of getting a picture of, ideally, if your week unfolds in a way that you would like it to, what's that kind of standard rhythm that you would love to create for yourself that that builds in a home in your schedule for those recurring things that you need to focus on. So if like networking is something that you need to make regular time for, or
they do need to do that.
What's that, girl?
I said they do need to do that.
Yeah, or professional development, like if those are things that you need to do in order to advance your career, then having kind of a home for that in your schedule for your week is a way to help ensure that that happens. But it can be really specific, the way you plot that out, or it can be broader and more flexible. But even if you don't stick exactly with that kind of ideal picture of the week, being able to have that as a template kind of signals to you, like for instance, normally at this time on Thursdays, I'm working on some marketing communications stuff. And so because Carol and I scheduled this time together, I know I've got to find a new home for that. So it's sort of a visual cue for me of, right, this is something I need to put elsewhere on my calendar. So that's time mapping, kind of in a way, a broader, more general kind of way to implement the same idea is to just theme your days. So rather than breaking it out into specific time blocks during the day, you can just think about each day of the week as having kind of a specific theme, or if you're like working on a side hustle in addition to your regular job. So maybe those themes would be like after work time, each day of the week, here's the after work or before work thing that I do on my side hustle, and have a different theme for each day of the week. So like I just mentioned, Thursdays is marketing day for me. And the last one I'll mention is these are a few specific times of blocks that are recommended in the book, The 12-Week Year. And the authors talk about these specific kinds of blocks that pretty much all of us need to make time for in our schedules. So the strategic block is about kind of high level work, things that are about. So like for instance, if you are running a business or a side hustle, this would be like that kind of work on your business, not in it, kind of time, where you sort of step back and take a more strategic look at things. But you can also think about your career in general that way, or your career search, your job search. The buffer blocks, so those are essentially kind of administrivia, kind of one or two short blocks per day where you can knock out email and phone calls and other sort of detail-oriented kinds of things. And then the breakout block, Carol, you'll love this one. He talks about the importance of completely unstructured free time to prevent burnout, and recommends trying to work up to at least 3 hours a week of that. No responsibilities, just renewal. Brian Moran is the author of that book.
I'm actually reading that book right now, Elaine.
Oh yeah?
I just started it last night.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff in there.
I really like it a lot. It's very to the point, it's like it's really actionable. It doesn't go into a bunch of stories and fluff around, oh, this person did this and that. It's very direct.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that. The strategies are very direct. So yeah, I think that Seems like that's a really good one. And yeah, that breakout blocks I really struggle with tremendously, because there definitely is a belief, I think, that I was taught, and I think many people were taught, that if you're not working all the time, that you're not working. You know what I mean? And I think that I've learned that when I actually give myself that gift of some of that time, it actually helps me to then be even more effective when I am in the action of working, instead of spreading myself too thin. Like the work blocks are more productive because I have more energy for them and a better mindset for them. But it's really hard to do. It is. And I always say, like, if I wasn't married and I didn't have the dogs, like if I had our kids, like if it was just me, I don't know what I would do, because I would work 24 hours a day. Like if there weren't people that need me for something.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at that.
Yeah. And so in a way, you've put yourself in an environment that forces you to do some of what you need to do for yourself.
Well, yes and no, because see, what I just said was I do it for the people. That's the other problem, because that's when I'm taking care of other people, I'm not working, but I'm also not, that's not really a breakout block, right?
Yeah.
Because a breakout block, I got a massage last week with a mask on my face.
Wow.
I did it. I know it was a little risky. I probably shouldn't have done it, but I felt good about it. And I was so happy that I took a little time.
I wrestle with that same thing too. Like it's so been my experience that when I take breaks for renewal, I'm much more effective and better ideas come and I work more quickly. Yep. But it is super easy to get sort of sucked into that belief that you have to keep going. And it's one of the things I love about journaling is that it really helps me kind of like reconnect with the wise part of myself that goes, whoa. Like, have you fooled yourself into thinking that that something's a have to, when in fact
and you use the term wise self, in your work. And honestly, in my stuff, like that's why I call the ladies smart chicks, because to me it's like I say your inner smart chick. It's the same thing as your inner wise self, really. It's like, check in with the person who's like really in there. And yeah, you can't do that if you don't slow down. You just can't.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You have to slow down.
But yeah, what we found on Joybook, so my membership community that very well, Carol, because you're a part of it.
I love it.
But what we found on Joybook, we do some morning, I call them micro retreats, where there's just like a tiny bit of journaling to start the day. And I've been really astonished that like just a 3-minute pause to journal for 3 minutes can make a huge difference. It's just like creating a little opening for your wise self to come in and go, all right, here's what really matters today. So yeah, it's powerful, those pauses.
Well, I think that's another thing that people have a resistance to journaling, because journaling sounds like it's going to take a lot of time and be this super serious thing, and you have to pick the right journal and the right pen and the right chair to sit in and the right, and the right lighting and the right, and it again, it's that imperfect action thing, right? Sometimes you can just, I'm not kidding. I have in my life, and this was before I met you, because I've always journaled. Less strategically than I do now, because I know you, but I always did it. I used to actually sometimes, like, I could be sitting in my car in a parking lot and take out a piece of paper or an envelope that's like in my purse and start writing something, like, in journaling on it. Like, just thinking of an idea and like starting to write through how I feel about something. I've actually done that.
Love it.
Am I going to save that? No, probably not. But just the act of pausing and getting those thoughts out in a written way, that tactile written way, really has always helped me tremendously. some people like to journal, not in a written form. Like I know my son says he keeps the journal every day and he does it digitally because he doesn't write anything ever. But of course he's 25. So, I mean, a little different than the way I was brought up. So he never had to do a whole lot of writing, right? So he does it that way. But I really like the writing, the writing it out. But yeah, so I think that works too. But no, this is really good stuff. And this is stuff, if you can implement these strategies, I really feel like it is really life changing. And even the theming your days thing, I've started to do that lately too, and pick certain days of the week where I'm not going to have any client appointments, because what I used to do when I first started was I wanted just to please everyone, because I have that people pleaser problem too, and that motherly nurturing thing. So whenever somebody said they want to meet, oh, okay, yeah, I can meet then. And then what I had was all these appointments spread out all over my week with no blocks of time for me to create, write my book or create my videos or interact, answer email or anything else. I mean, and I can't just meet with people. I have to do, the other pieces of it and the other work as well. So yeah, I mean, so I've even started doing that, and that has helped me tremendously with the focus thing, and knowing like today, like on Monday, I woke up and I knew the whole day I was going to spend on my mini retreat planning with myself. And I did that this past Monday. I spent the whole day, no appointments with anyone, just on my business, instead of in my business, as you said.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And oh my God, I got so much accomplished because, I didn't try to spread it out, because I always think, oh, I can grab a little piece of time here or there. But what's interesting is, I forgot already what you called it, the shifting thing, the energy shifting thing, and how that.
Yeah.
What is that called again?
It was in my head just a moment ago.
The thing where like if you shift energy from one thing to another and then it sucks the life out of you, that is really a thing for me. Like, and I get that. Like,
switching costs.
Switching costs, yeah. And there really is a cost.
Went out of my head.
I can do that to people, it's me. But the switching costs can be really big, yeah. I see that, and I noticed that now that you pointed that out to me, that yes, I can switch, but I'm not as effective with my time, because there's a ramp up time in between. I can't just go back and forth. I found that when I was writing fiction a lot too. Like my husband used to say to me, well, you have time, well, just grab some time here or there, to write your book. And I'd say, I really can't do that, because it's such a mindset shift to go from doing my day job to writing like humorous fiction and getting in the world of those characters. It takes some time to make that shift. And I think that's what you're talking about. It's like that shifting cost. It's not an immediate switch that just goes off in my head. I have to get into a different space, like a different head space, a different emotional space, to be effective in that completely different type of activity.
Yeah.
So you really need to schedule it.
Hearing you talk about that reminds me of on this past Monday. So on Joybook, as you know, Carol, on Mondays we do a kind of co-working thing.
Make Progress Monday.
Make Progress Monday, yeah. And one of the people who was there this Monday, it was she has a daughter who's like 2 years old, and it was her daughter's first day back at daycare.
Oh,
and
wow.
She technically had the day off from work, but she's like, I want this uninterrupted day to do some really deep work on this important strategic project I've been needing to do. And it was so interesting to, like she hadn't been able to give it any deep thought for weeks. And it was so interesting to watch how long it took her to like slowly get her head back into it. Cause we check in every hour,
right?
Like work for an hour and then a little check in. And, each time the way she would be talking about it, it was like, it was just a little bit more there. And by like noon probably, so we start at 9:30, by noon, I think she was just like humming along, but it took that long for her to really get into it. And it was a great example of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you know, and it depends on the task, like, you know, sending an email to do some networking, like you don't you don't need big long blocks of time for that. But if it's, you know, some deep strategic thinking about the future of your business, yeah, like a longer block is really what you need in order to not run into problems with those switching costs.
And the co-working thing is really great for the whole accountability strategy piece, you know, because even though you're not working together per se, right? You're all working on your own stuff. Just having that little bit of structure around it. And Elaine, you'll be very proud of me and happy to know that after we get off this call, at 2:00 today, I am doing my first co-working session with my Career Happiness Studio membership community.
Oh, that's awesome.
And some people are really excited about it, and I'm so happy about that because, yeah, they're struggling with this finding time, you know, for themselves. And the one woman said that was really funny is she has teenagers at home, and her husband's been working from home, of course, you know, so she's had a house full of people driving her crazy. She's so funny. I love her. She's hilarious. She's just the stuff she says about it, but she's so funny. And she said, if I just say, don't bother me for 3 hours, they'll bother me. But she said, if I say, I belong to this community and I pay for this, this is a thing I do, you know, I signed up to do this thing and I have a thing today from 2 to 5, then they won't leave her alone. Only because she's now she's doing something with other people, even though unbeknownst to them, she's really not. She's going to sign into the Zoom call. I'm going to say, hey, everybody, and then we're all going to work on our own thing. And if they have questions for me, we can go off into the little Zoom room I made. But, you know, they're going to just work it. So really, it's the same freaking thing. But because she's claiming that time for herself, because she's calling it something else, you know. So yeah, it is really helpful to have that type of accountability that is a little bit more structured, to make you really sit down and focus on what it is. You know, it's almost like an assignment in school. Like you said, it's almost like school. It's like, you know, for these 3 hours, you have this, you're doing the lab, or you're doing the, I don't know, we're all going to study in the library together, you know, for these 3 hours or whatever, you know, whatever it is. And it's an intense focus, and it's a good way to claim your time. So yeah, I love Made Progress Mondays, and so I'm hoping that my people like that. I think it's going to be good.
I love that you're doing that. I think it's especially useful for the kind of folks who are working on career stuff.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right, because they have projects and they need to carve out the time, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And it needs to get done.
So if we were doing this live, I was going to invite people to take a few minutes to reflect on these different strategies that we just talked about, and think about for them what feels like it will work best as a way of creating time for those things that they identified with that first reflection exercise as really kind of the high impact actions that need space in order to happen. So if you're watching right now, I encourage you to actually intentionally think about that and make some decisions for yourself about 1 or 2 things that you want to try out to begin with. And then Carol, you and I can maybe come up with another time when I can actually come live into your group. And if people encounter challenges with this or have questions with any of this, or are expecting likely obstacles as you try to implement this, I'm happy to just kind of brainstorm together about solutions.
Yeah, and I think that actually, I don't know, I almost think that actually works better. Maybe the technology gods like screwed us on purpose, because it's funny because I'm thinking that actually might be better for people, because you know how when something is presented to you and you haven't had the time really yet to do any thinking or reflecting or journaling on it, and it's hard to think of what are your questions, you know, you're kind of like, I don't know, I need to digest this first, you know, before I know what my questions are. And one of my most technical people in my group, Murphy, who was trying to help us and we weren't being helped, sent me a message, and she actually sent me a screenshot, Elaine, of what the screen on the phone looks like. So you can actually see what button you need to press. So I'm going to send you that. And the problem was that because it was my live, I didn't have the same screen. You know, I had a different screen because I was the host. But when you're the participant in a Facebook Live on a phone, you have a different choice of a menu on the bottom. So she showed me that, and it's so easy. Like if you had been on a phone, it would have been like, oh, there's the green button, but there was no green button because you weren't on the phone, right? So I think, and Elaine and I will definitely test that this time. I'm not going to do it. I'm sure that we know what we're doing, but I cannot promise that there will never be more technical difficulties in Smart Chicks Career Club because that's not my area of expertise. But yeah, that would be super, super wonderful, Elaine, if you could come back. So yeah, we'll talk about that. And then if you guys have questions then, and I'll let everybody know when that's going to be so they can, if they do want to bring questions to that, they can. And also if I get questions between now and then too, you know, even once we post this, people can put questions, you know, if you're watching this video right now, you can put any questions or thoughts that you have about the content in this post, and I can bring those, you know, to Elaine as well.
Yeah, perfect. And I can, and we can also, like I said, post that link to get the PDF for the 10 strategies.
I'm going to post that. Yeah.
And then the other thing I just wanted to let people know about is we've made a couple of mentions of Joybook. And those 10 strategies and the Soulful Time Management Retreat that you've experienced live, Carol, is also there inside Joybook as a resource for people. So if anyone wants to come check that out, so we've been open it as a private group for several months now, but Joybook just at the beginning of this month opened up to the public. So we're now open and accessible for anyone who feels like this looks like home to them. So there's some special launch pricing right now, and I think it's the 27th of this month that the price will be going up. So if people are interested and want to come check it out and think it might be for them, before the 27th would be the the perfect time to do that before the price goes up. But
immediately as soon as Elaine let me, because it's very excited. And it really is, first of all, it's a beautiful site, and Elaine really poured her heart and soul into it. So, I mean, and the functionality of it is just, you know, from a practical standpoint, it's amazing. An aesthetic standpoint, it's amazing. And then the content standpoint is like off the charts. So really, it's a wonderful community, really wonderful people that Elaine has in her core group of followers, of course, you know, wonderful
people like Carol.
There's lots of people, like, I think that are way nicer than me, but yes, but there's a lot of really nice people in there, and just really smart people. You know, it's definitely a place where there's a lot of smart chicks. So it's a good place for smart chicks. And definitely a lot of it is just really, really, you know, as Elaine said, the Soulful Time Management Retreat is in there. A lot of it is really eat stuff that, yes, having Elaine's facilitation, of course, is amazing, but a lot of the stuff you can do in your own time and still get a ton of value. And then Elaine also offers, you know, many different, you know, and the Make Progress Monday was one example, but many opportunities. She does, I think, monthly group coaching calls. So many opportunities to also engage with Elaine. So you get some of Elaine in person. In addition to, you know, all of the self-paced work that you can do in there as well. So I do highly recommend the community. And yeah, I will put all those links in this post, Elaine, so everyone watching this video will be able to see the links in the post, and we'll keep reminding them about this stuff as well. And you and I will pick a time to talk maybe sometime next week live in the group.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, wonderful.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Carol. This was fun to do. And again, I'm sorry we didn't get to do it live, but I'm really excited to come back and people's questions and hang out and chat together.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And this way, I mean, so a lot of times, a lot of people can't attend live anyway. So, this way, everyone will still get an opportunity to see it and do the work and get to know you. So thank you so much. And we'll talk.